There's a moment in every woman's life when the world splits clean in two, before and after. For me, that moment happened beneath a chandelier at the Ritz-Carlton downtown, surrounded by gold-rimmed champagne flutes and curated smiles. It was the 20th anniversary gala of Graves and Hartwell, the company my husband and I had built from scratch. The stage was set like a Forbes feature, strategically lit, professionally staged, and emotionally hollow. Derek stood at the center, holding the mic with that practiced charm he'd perfected over 2 decades. "We wouldn't be here without each and every one of you," he said, his voice warm, executive smooth. "And after 20 years of building something beautiful, Eleanor and I have decided to part ways amicably." He smiled, a few gasps, then applause. Because in our world, presentation is everything. I stood 5 feet away, expression composed. I didn't look at him, I looked at the room, at the partners who avoided my gaze, at Emily standing too close to him, near the edge of the stage, her face polite, her eyes rehearsed. I raised my glass, clinked it gently, and said, "Best of luck, Derek." Then I turned and walked out. Back straight, steps even, heart cracking beneath silk. I didn't cry that night. Not in the car, not at home. Not even when I slipped off the necklace he'd given me 10 years ago, the one Emily had once complimented with almost too much familiarity. Pain when it's public is currency. I wasn't going to give him that. Let me introduce myself properly. My name is Eleanor Graves. I'm 48. I was the chief operating officer and co-founder of Graves and Hartwell, though you won't find many press clippings with my name on them. That was Derek's job. He had the face, the charisma, the handshake. I had the systems, the spreadsheets, and the sleepless nights. He was the vision, I was the execution. While he was shaking hands in Dubai, I was managing payroll calming investors, rewriting contracts at 2 Noor a.m. He built the facade, I built the foundation. But here's the thing about building something together. If someone decides to burn it down, they usually don't ask the architect. I should have seen it coming, the late-night meetings, the locked phone. The way Emily started wearing tailored blazers like mine, but brighter. She was young, 27. "Quick," Sharp Derek once said offhandedly when I raised an eyebrow at her sudden promotion. But she was more than sharp. She was strategic. I'd met her when she was still an intern. She'd called me her mentor. I'd taught her how to read a financial report, coached her through her first failed pitch deck. Once, when she was passed over for a promotion, she cried in my office. I made her tea. I told her not to take it personally. 2 years later, she was scheduling meetings without me, then canceling them altogether. I kept quiet. That was my flaw. I thought if I didn't fight, if I just kept working, kept showing up, the truth would sort itself out. That if I avoided conflict, I'd keep my family. That if I stayed silent, I'd stay safe. But silence doesn't protect you. It buries you. When Derek made that announcement so casual, so clean, he wasn't just ending our marriage. He was erasing me. From the company, from the narrative, from everything we built. He thought I'd walk away, that I'd lick my wounds quietly, take my house in the hills, and let him play CEO with his fresh-faced assistant. What he forgot is that I don't break. I build, and I rebuild sharper. You don't build an empire without bleeding for it. In the glossy photos, Graves and Hartwell looks inevitable 2 founders, shaking hands, smiling beneath banners. But the truth, it was never easy. It was never even, and it was never kind. I spent the first 10 years without a salary, not because we couldn't afford it, eventually we could, but because Derek always insisted we reinvest. I agreed. I freelanced at night, small-time financial consulting gigs, just to pay our rent fund, our daughter's tuition, and keep the lights on. We're building legacy, Elle, he used to say. One day this'll all pay off. I nodded, because I believed in him, in us. When my mother passed, I flew back to Vermont alone. Derek was in San Francisco, pitching a major investor. He sent a floral arrangement with a typed card. I read it at the burial, alone. Our daughter Claire was 10 then. She asked why Daddy didn't come. He had work, I told her. I told her that a lot. When Claire had the flu, I ran meetings from her bedroom. When I was 6 months pregnant, I negotiated a vendor dispute over satellite connection from a farmhouse bathroom during a thunderstorm. Derek never missed a deal. I never missed a deadline. The first time I noticed Emily, she was 24, fresh out of grad school. She stuttered during her onboarding presentation. I pulled her aside, gave her a second chance. She thanked me with glassy eyes and a trembling voice. She called me a mentor. She asked me how I handled stress, how I convinced boards, how I structured deals. "You're the kind of woman I want to become," she once whispered half in awe. Funny how people outgrow their heroes when they taste power. It started subtly. Derek began talking about succession planning. The board thinks we need younger faces, media-savvy energy. He said one night swirling scotch in a glass I bought him from Prague. I smiled thinly. He always blamed the board. Next quarter, I was asked to step back from operations. Derek said I deserved rest, a sabbatical. Emily would cover some of my duties. Some apparently meant all. They told the team I was taking a break for my health. I was never sick, but maybe I was tired. Not physically, emotionally. Tired of rooms that fell silent when I entered. Tired of feeling like a ghost in meetings I used to lead. Tired of telling myself this is just a rough patch, it'll pass. Because women like me, we don't quit, we endure, we adapt, we swallow our anger like vitamins. Until one day something snaps, and the silence we've weaponized for survival becomes something else entirely. People assume betrayal looks like fireworks shouting, throwing things a big scene. But mine came in polite meetings, in revised org charts, in CC lines where my name vanished. I wasn't cheated on in a bedroom, I was erased in a boardroom. Looking back now, I don't regret the sacrifices, but I regret the silence. Because silence let them believe I was weak. And nothing makes people more dangerous than when you mistake their stillness for surrender. After the gala, I disappeared from headlines. No posts, no press releases, no retaliation, which made them careless. The first clue came wrapped in corporate jargon. "We're restructuring equity distribution to streamline future funding," Derek told the board in a company-wide memo. It sounded harmless, almost smart, except it wasn't just restructuring, it was removal. Emily's rise was fast, faster than optics should allow. She was no longer just the assistant, she was the face, the voice in interviews, the signature on investor memos, the one being quoted in Tech and Times about our next chapter. And I was on sabbatical. Even my corporate email was deactivated for security purposes. I started keeping notes, not out of spite, out of instinct. A lifetime of building trains. You to see small cracks before collapse. The next clue was in a signature, a document approving a share transfer on my behalf. Except I never signed it. And I never gave anyone power of attorney. That's when the weight of what they were doing hit me. This wasn't just betrayal, it was fraud. I called Ava. We hadn't spoken in years, not since college. But she worked high up in private banking now and she owed me a favor. I asked her to trace internal fund movements from Graves and Hartwell over the past 12 months. Quietly, no paper trail. What she found, Derek had been routing funds from the company into a shell corporation. The shell was registered under a generic name, but with a mailing address that matched one of Emily's old apartments. That corporation was receiving consulting fees suspiciously aligned with quarterly performance spikes. "It's clean on the surface," Ava warned me, "but the pattern is textbook laundering." He was transferring company money through Emily's shell firm, then using it to buy back shares, illegally diluting my stake. I didn't scream. I didn't confront. I did what women like me do best. I documented. Screenshots, timestamps, legal copies, bank transfers, clauses in dusty contracts I hadn't looked at in a decade. And then I called David Monroe, one of the best corporate litigation attorneys in the state. "This is going to be ugly," he said, "but you've got leverage more than you realize." We met in secret, rented office space under an alias, started building the case. I also reread our founder's agreement. Buried in legalese, written 15 years ago, was a clause I'd almost forgotten. In the event of financial misconduct by one party, the other retains immediate veto power over corporate restructuring until an independent audit is complete, a clause Derek had waved off when we first drafted it. "It's just in case one of us goes rogue," he joked. Funny. I kept it in. He forgot it existed. One by one, the pieces clicked into place. Emily wasn't just an affair. She was an accomplice. She wasn't just stealing my husband, she was helping steal my company. But I didn't want revenge. I wanted records, receipts, rulings. Because I wasn't going to shout at Derek across a dinner table. I was going to bury him in court. Derek thought I was done. He mistook my silence for surrender and my distance for defeat. So when his lawyers reached out, they came with a smile. Let's keep things amicable. You take the house, he'll keep the company. No messy courtrooms. I read the proposal twice, no mention of the stolen shares, no reference to the forged power of attorney. Just a clean little exit plan for him. I signed the agreement, calmly, carefully, and then I filed 2 lawsuits the next morning. The first was personal, the second was corporate. David, my lawyer, moved quickly. A motion to freeze all company transfers until an independent audit could be completed. A request for full discovery of internal financial documents. A subpoena to Emily's shell company requesting all transaction records. And a civil complaint for fraud, misrepresentation, and unauthorized transfer of marital assets. We also filed a claim under our prenup, a document Derek probably hadn't looked at in 20 years. He forgot the clause buried on page 7. All assets formed during the marriage from shared capital, regardless of ownership title, are subject to equitable distribution, which meant every share created, every deal, signed every cent in that company was community property. At the emergency hearing, Derek showed up smug. He wore his usual navy suit, pressed, polished, powerful. He sat across from me like a man showing mercy. Let's not escalate this, he said in front of the mediator. It's just business, Elle. He still thought I was the woman he could overtalk at dinner. He still thought he was the smarter one. I didn't answer. I just handed over the file. Inside were 3 notarized signature comparisons, proving forgery internal documents, listing Emily's shell company as a preferred vendor, and a timeline of suspicious transfers matching Derek's personal asset growth. His smile fell after page 3. The audit began. Within weeks, the findings were damning. Emily was not just aware, but had actively managed the transfers. Several invoices she signed were backdated. One consulting contract was written on a Google Doc, last edited from her personal email. When presented with the evidence, Emily's lawyer requested a closed-door meeting. She wanted to settle. My client was misled, they argued. She didn't understand the full implications. But she had signed the documents. She had accepted the funds. She had participated in erasing me. The board, now under legal obligation, had no choice. Emily was removed from all corporate duties. Her access revoked, her compensation frozen, and Derek, he was placed under temporary removal pending further investigation. That meant I legally became acting CEO again. I didn't throw a party. I didn't post a comeback quote on LinkedIn. I sat in my old office, logged into my old computer, and changed my password. The first email I sent to Claire, my daughter. Just so you know, sweetheart, Mom's not done. Court isn't dramatic like the movies. No screaming, no last-minute objections, just facts, files, and a judge who doesn't care about your charisma, only your paperwork. The verdict came after 8 weeks of silence, long days, longer nights, and then one afternoon David called, his voice steady. We won. Here's how it landed. The court ruled the share transfers were fraudulent based on forged documents. Derek's 34% stake in the company was suspended. Because of the co-founder clause I'd quietly kept, I was granted 52% voting control effective immediately. And because he used company funds for personal gain, a portion of Derek's personal assets were seized and liquidated to repay the firm. It wasn't just a divorce, it was a financial reckoning. Emily resigned the same week. No media statement, no staged exit interview, she just left. But before she disappeared, she sent me an email, just one sentence. You were the only one who saw me before I became this. There was no defense, no plea, just regret. Not for Derek, for herself. I let the message sit in my inbox for 2 weeks. Then from a new business email, I sent her a reply. Subject opportunity from CEO@gravesanco.com to erobbins@personalmail.com. I'm willing to offer you a position again under one condition. Publish a public apology acknowledging your actions and their consequences. No spin, no PR, just truth. She never replied. But the offer wasn't really for her. It was for everyone watching, for the board, the staff, the investors, the next ambitious assistant who thought ethics were optional. And for Claire, because the day after the court decision, she called me. I told my roommate, she said, that my mom just took back a company. She said, "You sound like a superhero." I laughed. "I'm not a superhero," I told her. "I'm just a woman who stopped staying quiet." Derek never spoke to the press. He tried to downplay the scandal leak, a few quotes about mutual decisions and personal transitions. But everyone knew, silence makes a loud echo when the truth finally drops. Last I heard, he was consulting for a fintech startup, off the record, off the radar. The kind of man who walks into a room and waits for someone to remember who he used to be. And me, I walked back into the company as the woman they never saw coming. Not the co-founder's wife, not the shadow behind the curtain, but the one with the keys now, and this time I kept the doors locked. 6 months later, we changed the name. Not a full rebrand, just a correction. Graves and Counter. Derek's name was removed from every legal document, asset registry, and trademark filing. I didn't throw a press conference, I just uploaded a new logo, and inside the new logo, subtly woven into the design, was a small phoenix. Not because I burned, but because I survived. The company didn't implode. It stabilized. Turns out investors trust a woman who holds her ground without needing to perform it. Turnover dropped, culture improved, and clients, they stayed. They always knew who was really running things. 2 months after the verdict, I launched something new, the Quiet Founders Fund, a mentorship and seed capital program for women who were pushed out of startups they helped build. For every Eleanor who disappeared from a cap table. For every Emily before she sold herself cheap. The first cohort had 10 women. One of them said to me, I thought I was crazy, that I was the problem. I told her, "You're not crazy, you're just outnumbered for now." Claire helped design the website. On the homepage, there's a single sentence built by the woman you thought wouldn't fight back. She made it into her senior thesis, Corporate Femininity and Silent Power. She got an A. Last week, I spoke at a tech ethics summit. The ballroom looked familiar, velvet chairs, stage lighting, ambitious young faces. And in the back row alone, I saw him, Derek. He looked smaller, not physically, spiritually. The kind of man who'd once filled a room and now hoped no one noticed he was there. He didn't approach me. I walked past him after my talk. Our eyes met just for a second, and that was enough. Because here's the truth. He didn't just leave me for another woman. He left me for a fantasy. A younger version, a quieter shadow, someone easier to control. And in return, I let him keep the illusion, but I kept everything else. He left with a trophy girlfriend and a broken company. I stayed with my silence and took it all.